But, I've heard lots of family lore of what that was like to sell everything you have and pile all, because at that point they had 4 daughters and I was on the way, so my mom was heavily pregnant with me, traveling across country in the family station wagon with whatever they could cram into that, and moving to California and starting all over again. And when Mom got here, the story goes, she told Dad, "I'm never moving again." And she never did. She lived in the house they bought here for the rest of her life. It was largely because of the people they connected with that they wanted to stay here, that she left here. But also I think she was just tired of moving. She didn't want to move again. So I was born shortly after they moved here. And so I don't remember the actual moving to experience. My story's a little different.
Sure.
My sisters and I grew up here, went to public school here, went to John Marshall and Woodrow Wilson and Glendale High. And then I went off to college to Redlands. When I graduated from college, I left. Like many young people, I was like ready to leave. Lived in Philadelphia for 30 years and then moved back here. So I have a coming to Glendale story that's sort of, I went away and came back. We decided that when my kids, by that time I was divorced, when my kids graduated from high school, I would come back out here to take care of older family members. And in fact, that's what I did. I live in the same home I grew up in, the same house. And my dad has passed away. My older sisters now live not with me, but in the area. My younger daughter lives with me. And it's become the family homestead. It's where we all gather for holidays and birthdays and other family events. So it was really Glendale that drove me away, but also Glendale that drew me back. So it changed radically from the late 70s to 2010 when I moved back. When I grew up in Glendale, Glendale was very white. We did have a very large Cuban population when I was growing up here. It had, I believe at the time, it was the largest concentration of Cubans outside of Miami in the United States, largely because of what was happening politically in Cuba at the time. We had a lot of refugees, basically, from the Cuban Revolution. And so that was kind of interesting because my mom had been a home economics teacher, and she was a pretty good cook, but her cooking was kind of Midwest bland, right? So when we came here, her repertoire expanded, and she started, exploring what to her were exotic things like tacos and enchiladas. And then when we met a lot of our Cuban friends through church, it was, Cuban food and Cuban music. And so that was an interesting culture exchange. But except for that, Glendale was very homogenous, the Glendale I knew. And I couldn't stand that. So clearly, Glendale, ethnically and culturally, is very different. So now we're eating a lot more Armenian food, and we're having a lot more, friends that are from different cultures that we had when I lived here before. But we had lived in a very multicultural area in Philadelphia, so that was not anything unusual. It just was refreshing to see Glendale has changed in that way. I took a conversational Armenian class at Glendale College. The other thing that I did, though, which is kind of funny, is I took up square dancing, which is something I never thought I would have done. That was something my parents did, And I have a dear friend, an older lady, who kept saying, "Oh, honey, you should come and try it. It's so much fun." And I was like, "I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. That's what my parents did. I don't want to have some guy standing up there telling me what to do when I'm dancing, And she didn't give up on me. She kept bugging me and bugging me. And so finally I went to the class, and I love it. It is a wonderful little mini community here of diverse people who, I know we don't all share the same ideas politically, certainly, and religiously, but everybody just leaves that at the door, and they're just there to dance. So that's a wonderful little micro community within the community of Glendale. It's really two very different things. One is a place that has changed very much culturally and is struggling with that. I think of things I hear people say sometimes about those people, those other people, and I think, this is what makes Glendale great. You shouldn't be like separating people out, but I think the city is really struggling with that and with growth. And like I said, it's getting more crowded, and how do you deal with this growing gap in income between very, very rich people and homeless people, and like a lot of communities around the city, I feel like Glendale is struggling with that much more so than it ever did when I was growing up here. But the other thing I think of is very different from that. It's very personal. It's about the homestead, the home we live in, and how the family gathers there, and that house, which I know is just a house, but it's a very special house. It was built in the 30s and has all these old-fashioned, we never renovated it. It's just a classic old house. It's got good karma. And it's kind of the heart of our family. So when I think of Glendale, I think of that place as well as the larger community.